kudos to Twitter is actually they were bumping people who were doing these automated things. It took some time for us to figure out where that breaking point was. So the magic number, I don't know what it is today, but a while ago seemed to be around 50 to 75 per day, people that are following you. And then at some point, they'll start bumping you. Hey, this is automated. 75 people wouldn't follow you in that short amount of time. Of course, you could also create hundreds of accounts. So you could create hundreds of Twitter accounts. There's no throttles on those. And then start following all those people, 50 to 75 per day. And then obviously create a pretty big profile. So we followed 500 people with 400 people following us. As I said, then Twitter booted us. We actually had some problem getting back online. So I'm not sure if you're a legitimate person, you become a celebrity, or lots of people start following you for some unknown reason, and you get bumped. It's really hard, actually, to get back on track. So I guess you got to change your name or something to that effect. The next one really is about apps. And apps have gotten really popular. Obviously, everyone knows about Zynga. But apps in general are really growing or provide a lot of the growth monetarily and just growth programmatically and data-wise within some of these social spaces. But really the question is, do users really understand what they're agreeing to allow access to within their profile? And I think the answer is definitive no. I mean, even now Facebook's changed the warning signs that come up, but I mean, there's like 12 of them. Do you give away your firstborn? Yes. There's all kinds of them, and I think people just go through it, and yeah, of course, yeah, that's the way this thing works. Of course I'm willing to give access. But what I think is more scary is, do the developers really understand what access they have? So if you write a Twitter app or a Facebook app, I don't think most developers understand really what access to that account and all of that information they have, and that's a scary proposition. So I looked, there's about 250 different apps listed on Twitter. 65% of those have more than 1,000 people that have downloaded them and are active users. There's 5,000 Facebook applications on Facebook. Games are by far the most popular. So some of the things you could do, this has actually happened. You can create an app with the most popular social websites that does something good for free. Then you could turn it around and make it bad or start stealing information or steal data. Even with a lot of the apps today, a lot of the widgets and gadgets that people use, even iPhone apps, you name it, people don't understand when they're putting in their credentials, the credentials are going to somebody else first, and then those credentials are getting passed on. Unless they're using OpenID or something else, which a lot don't, they're automatically going to another party. So that party actually has your credentials, and then that gets passed off. As I said, the API access gives you a lot of power. Some of them, depending on the API, you can read, write, create, delete, modify, and edit the social graph of the person. It's being done already. We've seen fake Facebook apps. We haven't seen any fake Twitter apps quite yet. I'm not sure if any of you have. But once you have access, you can modify all the accounts and details on those accounts. So the last one is geography-based hacks. And this, to me, is actually the most interesting area today, location-based services. So over time, I believe geography is playing a larger role in ranking real-time data. If you look at the funding into Foursquare, that's evidence. I've heard statistics like the coupon market alone for geography-based services is $2 to $5 billion. What all that means is that coupons coming down to your handheld device are being serviced to you based on where you are. That's big money, just for coupons. Forget all the other stuff. So the APIs that are out there today allow you actually to send your own latitude and longitude. So you can actually say where you are. So you can say, hey, I'm here. I'm there. Not necessarily where you are. Some of them are a little smarter. They look at your IP address, and then they use MaxMind or some other way to actually map where your coordinates are. But actually, we all know you can change your IP. You can be at another place at any given time. So assuming that geography plays a larger role, you could also target folks based on where they are. So we've seen this with web servers, today, where, I've seen some banking Trojans, for example, which will show up, a Bank of Italia phishing site, and will only work for people that are in Italy. It's not going to work for someone in the US. So you can take some of those models and shift them towards geography-based attacks. And eventually, you're starting to see geo becoming more granular, and I'll talk about that later. Some people call that ambient streams. So we mapped where we were. There's also some Twitter-based services. For example, there's something called nearby tweets that people use. Nearby tweets is basically you're in an area, you just want to know what's going on in that area. Hey, I'm in Dallas. I want to know what's going on in Dallas. So we were in San Diego at the time. We said we were in Dallas. We started tweeting like we were in Dallas about current events happening in Dallas. And it turns out there was some kind of Southwest Airlines, I don't know, protest or something. That was big in the news. So we couldn't actually get up in the top ranks of the search results until we actually said we were in Dallas. And then everything that used Geo as part of that actually allowed us to get top real estate in the search engines. So finishing up on that, taking the three components of these and putting them together gives you a pretty powerful ammo to duping the real-time search engines today. So the first one is relevancy. What's new, what's happening right now, what's going on today. And the traditional search engine poisoning uses a bit of that today, except it's really all about buzz and keywords. This is really what's going on in the social space at any time. The next one is your social graph. So with the Boston Marathon, we joined the Boston Marathon Facebook page, which had like 14,000 people that were all talking about the Boston Marathon at that particular time. And then the last one is geography. Where are you at any given time? And this is really the relevance plus truth plus geography equals truth. So we posted that like we were in Boston, like we were at the finish line actually in Boston, and we posted it as a picture. And with all of those together, this was actually the only way that actually we became the top link in Google. So Google in their real-time bar actually has the real-time results, and then they have the top one, which is expensive real estate if you pay money for search. So we became the top search for item about the Boston Marathon in the top links, essentially a paid-for space, by mapping those things together. So just wrapping up, some of the future of real-time hacking. This has actually already started happening. So really, it's now a matter of, not when will Trojans use open APIs, but really some of the Trojans already are starting to use the open APIs for their own good in some way. So if you really start thinking evil, here's some of the things we can do. We all know there's bots out there. Obviously, it can be controlled, paid for, and everything else. They do all kinds of things. But if you take a medium to large size botnet, say 100,000 nodes, you actually could register. Let's just say you're conservative. You register 5 accounts per day across the social graph. You could actually, in open APIs, register more than 14 million accounts in 1 week with only 5 per day with that kind of control. So from there, you could actually start using the messaging protocols to control this bot. And that becomes really hard to notice and really hard to take down because you're using real infrastructure. So the Twitter bots that are out there today are just using Twitter messages to control the bots through Twitter. Well, with this, you can actually use a headless system where you can map the social graph and the web APIs to actually control the bot in a nefarious way. So with all that power, you can really think evil, and you can really think what you can do. So things you could do is pull common headlines, build reputation over time. You could obviously build password cracking systems. These passwords, it's been proven, are pretty easy, so you can compromise people's accounts. You can build up geography-specific popularity that rely on geography. You could build your own social graph, so you could build something that you think is going to be important or that is important, build it up, build reputation in that, and then post. And lastly, to me, one of the scariest things out there today is this whole notion of ambient streams. And ambient streams is basically the equivalent of Minority Report, where you're walking down the street and someone goes, "Hey, Tom Cruise, I like that Gap shirt. It's on sale in this building." Or, "Hey, Dan, you're next to Starbucks in Caesars. Do you want $5 off your $12 cappuccino?" And this is becoming a reality. Mobiles now have location-based services on them and are posting data as where you are at any given time. All these devices are doing this. And the way they map this out is basically they're saying the real-time web plus geography plus published information plus your personal and social communication or your social graph equals the Holy Grail. This is the Holy Grail of real-time search. And to me, I just really think the reality of that is it's going to be really hard to assign truth or attribute truth to these things that are going on virtually in this anonymous, frictionless system where people can dupe what's going on. And what's particularly scary to me is really the meat space component of this. Right now, all the attacks we're talking about are really about virtual. They're faceless. I don't care where that person is. I'll take their bank information. We don't really care who's behind that PC. But with geography, you know where the person is. You know a lot about the social graph of that person. And that's a pretty scary thing when you know where someone is at any given time and what they're doing and who their friends are and what they may be talking about. Because people sit in these things now and go, hey, you know, I'm at DEF CON in this room talking about blah, blah, blah. So people actually know what's going on and where you are. So to finish up, you know, some of the things that we're looking at now is influencing Facebook streams and search with likes and dislikes. That actually is becoming more prevalent. And hacking Foursquare, which is by far the most popular geography-based service that's out there today. So that's it. I don't think we have maybe 1 minute for question now. Go to that. Yeah. Go ahead.
Your point on meat was one that I started getting worried about a while ago, and I sort of just comment on my blog about how I think I'm worried about this. You know, that I get all these broadcasts on my Twitter feed that somebody's in X, and then there's another website that lists what people are buying.
Yep.
Right. So okay, I know you're at Best Buy, and I just see what you bought. Okay, wow, that maybe you already have a lot of that cool shit in your house, and I'm gonna go rob you.
Yeah.
And the response I got back was, you're irrational. This is something to be afraid of because the only people following you are people who are already going to know where you are and you have anyway.
Yeah.
I was kind of surprised.
Ignorance is bliss, I guess.
People seem to dismiss these fears.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's just like the fears of data on Facebook and, you know, some of these other properties. It's the way people are working today, especially the younger generation. You know, they're more than happy to say where they are at any given time and give away this data. But I'm not sure we really thought through that. You know, what does this all mean down the road? Thank you very much, and we'll hand it over to the next presenter.